About 6 hours after the Capitol was stormed, Congress reconvened for what was supposed to be their business today.
I urge my colleagues to move forward with completing the electoral count, to refrain from further objections, and to unanimously affirm the legitimacy of the presidential election.
Utah Republican Senator Mitt Romney, one of the few Republicans to ever rebuke the president's actions, calling for unity in what's supposed to be a ceremonial process. Late tonight, some but not all of the Republicans who began this day planning to object to the electoral vote certification announced they had changed their mind. All right, now let's bring in the host of Facing South Florida, CBS 4's Jim DeFede.
Jim, many lawmakers striking a very different tone tonight. Some who had vowed to challenge the election results now singing a different tune. So was this a turning point today, and where do we go from here?
That's a really interesting question. You know, as you think about the evolution of the day, you know, there was a sickening feeling watching those images from the Capitol. This was a threat to our democracy. This was a mob inspired by the president, you know, incited by the president to go and do that damage. But you saw also that it was just such a repugnant act that you did see Republicans start to back away from the president. It's almost as if, at least in the Senate, that fever broke, where there were 13 senators who had said that they would not recognize Joe Biden's victory and that they would vote to block certification. That number in Arizona ended up dropping down to 6. And Marco Rubio and Rick Scott, as you mentioned, voted to basically to accept Joe Biden as the next president. In the House, the last time I checked, and they were voting just as we were going on air, more than 100 members of the Republican House, you know, continued to support this delusional fantasy that there was widespread election fraud when there, in fact, was not. So you have a sense of there is some people who want to believe that today's events were so outrageous that it sort of puts an end to the Trump era. I'm not convinced. I do think that a number of Republicans, you know, and the people, folks at large, were beginning to back away from the president, back away from what they saw, you know, and let's face it, there's a lot of people who were in some of those rallies who were wearing those MAGA hats who would not agree with what took place. This is not universal, but they have to also accept the fact that the president bears some responsibility for this, as do the politicians who have failed to confront him over the last 2 months, let alone 4 years.
Jim DeFede, thank you so much. It's been a historic yet difficult day. Thanks again for your insight, Jim.